Hello everybody and welcome to another episode. In today's episode I am going to show you how to completely remove and replace the serpentine belt along with the serpentine belt tensioner and all the pulleys from around it from any Mercedes Benz A Class or B Class with the engine 180 CDI. So without any further ado, if you want to replace the serpentine belt or the alternator or the serpentine belt tensioner from this kind of vehicle, doesn't matter if you have an engine like this one or a bigger one or a smaller one, the first thing which you'll have to do is to put the car on a jack stand and you'll have to remove the engine mounting supports and lower the engine under the vehicle a little bit, because otherwise you'll have no space to reach the bolts which you'll have to remove to complete this kind of job. So in my case, I already removed the bolts which are securing the engine attached to the engine mounting support, and I'm supporting the engine with a jack stand from under it. Right here underneath the vehicle I installed my jack stand to support the weight of the engine, and also I removed all the undershields which were installed right here underneath the vehicle, and I removed the alternator from the mounting bracket, and also I disconnected the AC compressor from the mounting bracket. So on this vehicle the serpentine belt snapped while driving because the pulley from the alternator was blocked, and because of that the serpentine belt slided over the pulley and eventually it did break it. Right here, this is the correct position for the AC compressor, and you have to remove 4 bolts which are securing it mounted in place to the vehicle. Also, don't forget to disconnect the connector from behind of it. After that, you have to remove the alternator, and the alternator is secured to the engine with 3 longer screws. After you disconnect them, you can just let it hang on the lines, because you will not be able to remove it unless you remove the entire kit from the tensioner and from the guidance pulley. After that, right here at the top, it will be the tensioner from the serpentine belt, and right here at the bottom, it will be this guidance pulley, which I already removed. And if you want to remove the tensioner or the guidance pulley, I recommend all to remove completely the entire kit and the entire mounting bracket for it. And this huge aluminum part is secured to the engine with 3 bolts from right here at the top of the engine in the back. And after you remove those 3 bolts, you'll have to pull it out completely and replace it completely with a brand new one. One, 2, and 3 right here. 1 in the left and 2 in the right side. It is a little bit complicated to replace it because the space is so small and it's very difficult to reach the parts, but it can be done. In my case, for example, I don't have an elevator, but I'm able to do it right here on the jack stand in my garage. Also right here should be an under tray or an under shield from under the vehicle, but I already disconnected and put it away. Also, before trying to lower the engine, you'll have to disconnect this cable from the negative cable of the battery, and also this bracket from right here, which are attached to the engine in this position. After you finish removing the 3 bolts which are securing the tensioner bracket attached to the engine, you can just remove it completely out from the vehicle and pull it out. And on this vehicle, this is how the tensioner and also the guidance pulley are looking. This is where they are installed, and right here are the 3 bolts which you have to disconnect and put it away if you want to pull it out from the vehicle. From here, as you can see, the alternator is free to go. I only have to disconnect the power supply from the back of it and also the connector from the back of the alternator, and I can just pull the alternator out from the vehicle. And as you can see and hear, the pulley from the alternator is broken. Normally it should turn in one direction, and in the other direction it should not spin, but in this case it's blocked. It's turning in both of the directions, so this is not good. Right here at the top I have the water pump, which is still working perfectly fine. I have nothing to worry about it. Also, the pulley from the AC compressor is still working fine. I have nothing to worry about it. So from what I can see on this vehicle, because other pulleys are working perfectly fine, I will only have to replace the pulley from the alternator. I will have to replace the serpentine belt and also the serpentine belt tensioner with all the pulleys from around it. One thing which I recommend you all to do, if you want to lower the engine a little bit more, is to disconnect this power supply from the gearbox side. In my case, this is an automatic gearbox and you'll have this connector attached to it, but I recommend you all to disconnect it before, because you can put pressure on it and break it, so you don't want this. So you'll have to disconnect it, and after you finish this kind of job, you'll have to connect it back to the gearbox and you're perfectly fine. Right now I will disconnect the alternator, I will remove the connector part from the back of it, and I will put it away. So right here, as you can see, the power cable is removed from the alternator. Also, the connector from it is also removed, and the alternator is right here out on the ground. Okay everybody, so right here in my face I have all the brand new parts which I am going to install on this engine. This is the tensioner with all the guidance rods and the guidance pulley which are attached to this mounting bracket element. Also the alternator is out from the vehicle, the pulley from the alternator is removed. I used my impact gun to remove the pulley from the alternator. But you can also use some special tools which will help you to remove the pulley from the alternator a little bit easier. Right here I have the serpentine belt, and right here in this little box I have the brand new pulley which is made by the manufacturer INA. Right here all the parts are ready to be installed on the vehicle. The pulley from the alternator is replaced with a brand new one, and from here the only thing which I have left to do is to install everything back on the engine and start the engine to see how everything is working so far. In my case, the brand new pulley which I installed on this alternator is a little bit longer on the exterior side than the original one, but after I did some checks it's not affecting in any way the movement of the serpentine belt, so I have nothing to worry about it. And I only wanted to tell you all that some parts may not be exactly the same like the ones which you remove from the car, because in some cases the original ones are a little bit different than the aftermarket ones. So the first element which you have to install on the engine is the alternator, and you have to connect the cables from the back of it. After that you have to install the tensioner with the mounting bracket and with the guidance pulley, and then you have to install the alternator with the 3 screws and tighten it to spec. You'll have to tighten all the bolts to 20 Nm. After that, the next step which you have to do is to install back the serpentine belt. You have to put it over the guidance pulley. I will put you right here an image to show you exactly how to install it. And make sure to not disconnect the locking pin for the tensioner, because you'll only have to remove it after you install all the parts back on the engine. Right here I'm going to install back the AC compressor. I'm going to install all the parts back over the engine, and then I'm going to put the serpentine belt, and with a special key I'm going to detension the tensioner, and I'm going to remove the locking pin for the tensioner, and the belt will be tensioned afterwards. I hope you are able to see exactly the serpentine belt location and how it's moving. And from here, like you can see, the only thing which you have to install is the AC compressor. Very good everybody, so the AC compressor is installed back on the vehicle, and you have to tighten the bolts which are securing it attached to the engine to 20 Nm. Also, the serpentine belt is installed perfectly over all the pulleys and over all the guidance rods. And from here I'll have to detension the tensioner with a 14mm key, and I'll have to remove the locking pin for the tensioner, and then the belt will be tensioned over all the parts. And after that you can just lift the engine up, and you have to secure it in place over the engine mounting supports. You can also install all the brackets, all the hardware, all the clips which you disconnected. Make sure to install the connector from the gearbox. If you do disconnect it, make sure to install the negative cable from the battery, and also this mounting bracket over the engine. And after that you can just start the car and see how the problem is fixed or not. And right here, as you can see, I installed everything back together over the engine. Everything is secured and tightened to spec. I only have to install back the undershield from the engine, and the job is done. Right now I'm going to start the engine to see if the car is working perfectly fine or not. And as you can see, the engine started right away. It did struggle a little bit because the battery it was a little bit low, but eventually it did start perfectly. In my case, the car is fixed, everything is working perfectly fine, the engine is sounding amazing, so from here the job is done. This is how to replace the serpentine belt with all the hardware from around it, and also the pulley from the alternator. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video and found it informative, please leave a like and a comment down below. See you next time.